How did one desperate farmer take a bankrupt, hail-destroyed, chemically addicted patch of dead dirt and turn it into a 5,000-acre, multi-million-dollar regenerative empire without using a single drop of synthetic fertilizer? The secret to this agricultural revolution is not a new chemical or a genetically modified seed. It is a microscopic underground fungal highway that modern farming has spent the last 70 years trying to destroy. In the spring of 1995, the sky over Burleigh County turned black. Hail hammered Gabe Brown's wheat crop until nothing stood but shredded stalks and battered dirt. That year's harvest vanished in a single afternoon. The insurance payout arrived late, barely covering the seed bill. The following summer, a second storm swept through. Hailstones the size of golf balls stripped every green shoot from the field. The family's savings shrank, and the stress at the kitchen table grew harder to hide. By the third year, the pattern held. Hail again, crops flattened, another season of hope erased by weather that refused to cooperate. When drought followed in the fourth year, the ground cracked open, and the dust rose with every step. Rain clouds passed overhead, but the soil, stripped and compacted by years of tillage, couldn't hold what little moisture fell. Corn stalks withered before they could fill an ear. Every morning, Gabe and Shelley walked the fields, measuring loss in empty pods and brittle leaves. Each acre represented another unpaid bill, another call to the bank that offered less comfort and more questions. The letter from the bank came in late July. The operating loan, their lifeline for seed and diesel, had been revoked. No more credit, no more margin for error. The Brown family faced a simple equation. Without crops, there was no income. Without income, there was no way to stay on the land. The stress seeped into every conversation. What to pay, what to sell, how to keep the farm from slipping away after 3 generations. Nights grew longer as Gabe and Shelley weighed their options. Sell off the herd, lease out the fields, pack up and start over somewhere else? Yet even in the thick of failure, a question nagged at Gabe. Why did the ground seem so dead, so unable to recover? The family needed answers, not just for the next season, but for their survival. With nothing left to lose, Gabe sent soil samples to the lab. The test results would reveal more than the numbers. They would expose the difference between dirt and soil and hint at a mystery buried beneath their feet. A manila envelope from the county lab arrived with a single sheet inside. At the top, soil organic matter, 1.7%. The number stuck in Gabe's mind, flat and final. For a decade, every acre had been tilled and planted by the book, disked in spring, sprayed and fertilized, harvested bare. Each pass was supposed to coax more life from the ground. Instead, the soil had become pale, tight, and bitter, what agronomists call dirt. Gabe traced the numbers with his thumb. Soil organic matter is the living bank account of the land. On a healthy prairie, it runs 5, 6, or even 8%. Here, after years of conventional farming, it had fallen below 2%. That explained the dust, the crust that sealed after every rain, the way water ran off instead of sinking in. Nothing in the report mentioned biology, no earthworms, no fungal threads, no smell of earth after rain, just a number, 1.7%, and a quiet warning. The land was running on empty. He thought about the tools he'd been taught to use, plows, discs, anhydrous ammonia. They promised quick fixes, but each year the soil seemed weaker, more desperate for another shot of synthetic nitrogen. It was like chemotherapy for the land, a treatment that kept things alive but never made them healthy. The more he tried to force production, the more the ground withdrew, until it was nothing but a thin, exhausted crust. The lab report did not offer solutions. It did not point to a new seed variety or another chemical. It just measured what was missing. Gabe stood in the kitchen holding the paper and realized he was not fighting a bad season or a string of bad luck. He was up against a deeper problem, one that would not be solved by doing more of the same. The crisis was not just about money or weather. It was about the difference between dirt and soil and the invisible life that makes the land resilient. The numbers forced a new question. What if the answer was not more inputs, but a different way of thinking about the ground itself? A microscope slide, a drop of water, a pinch of soil from Gabe's battered field. These became the unlikely keys to a hidden world. In the county office, a Natural Resources Conservation Service scientist peered through the lens and invited Gabe to look. The field might have seemed empty above ground, but under magnification, a tangle of translucent threads came into focus. These were mycorrhizal fungi, nature's original internet, weaving a silent web beneath the prairie. Their hyphae, finer than a human hair, stretched for yards through the soil, linking plant roots together into a living network. The scientist explained that on healthy land, these fungal filaments act as a highway. Plants, powered by sunlight, push sugars down to their roots and trade them to the fungi. In return, the fungi ferry water and minerals, phosphorus, zinc, even nitrogen, back to the plant. It is a barter system older than agriculture, and it is the reason prairie grasses once thrived through drought and flood. But on Gabe's fields, the network had been severed. Every pass of the plow sliced through the hyphae, breaking the connections. Synthetic nitrogen, once seen as a miracle, gave crops an easy meal, but it also convinced the plants to stop bargaining with their fungal partners. Without a reason to trade, the partnership faded. Colonization rates dropped, and the soil's underground life withered. Gabe listened, unsettled. For years, he had measured success in bushels and pounds, trusting that more fertilizer and deeper tillage meant more yield. But the microscope told a different story. The soil was not just a medium for roots, it was alive, or it was supposed to be. When the fungal highway was intact, a single teaspoon of earth could hold miles of hyphae, moving carbon and nutrients from plant to plant, binding particles into stable crumbs that let water soak in. When the network was broken, the ground hardened, rain ran off, and crops stood alone. The scientist's words landed with the weight of a revelation. The difference between dirt and soil was not just chemistry or texture, it was the presence of this invisible community, trading, building, and defending the land from drought and disease. Gabe left the office with a new target, not a higher fertilizer rate or a different seed, but the restoration of the soil's living network. The question was how to rebuild what decades of steel and salt had destroyed. Crop residue, once seen as waste to be disked under, became the farm's first line of defense. After the last combine passed, Gabe left the wheat and corn stubble standing tall, ankle-high, sometimes knee-high, across every acre. The shattered stalks and broken leaves formed a patchwork armor, shielding the bare ground from sun and wind. Instead of blowing away, the topsoil stayed put. Each rain, instead of carving gullies, soaked gently into the soft mulch. That armor was more than a physical shield. It was a promise to the fungi and earthworms below that their world would remain undisturbed. The decision to stop tilling was not a trend in Burleigh County in the mid-1990s. In 1994, Gabe became the first farmer in the county to go full-time no-till out of 700,000 cropped acres. Neighbors called it lazy farming. Dealers wondered if he had lost his edge, but each pass of the plow, he had learned, broke the underground threads that made soil alive. The old disc and chisel plow were parked for good, replaced by a no-till drill that sliced narrow furrows just wide enough to tuck in seed. Instead of turning the earth, the new machine left last year's residue standing, undisturbed. The first spring, the drill's openers rattled through the stubble, seeds dropping in behind. The fields looked ragged, nothing like the clean black rows his father-in-law prized. But the change was immediate. Where bare dirt had crusted and baked, now the soil stayed cool and moist beneath the mulch, even as the sun climbed high. Moisture became the farm's new currency. In the years before no-till, a half-inch of rain would vanish by noon, lost to runoff and evaporation. With the stubble armor in place, every drop lingered. Gabe measured the difference with a soil probe. Where the residue was thick, the ground stayed damp days longer than the bare patches. The numbers told the story. Fields under residue held more water, and the young wheat pushed deeper roots even in dry spells. The armor slowed the wind, softened the impact of hail, and gave the fungi a chance to weave their network back together. The switch to no-till was more than a mechanical adjustment. It was a shift in mindset, from fighting the land to working with it, from controlling every inch to trusting the rhythms of biology. Each year, Gabe watched as earthworms returned, tunneling through the mulch, leaving castings behind. The soil, once tight and gray, began to loosen. The stubble that neighbors called trash became a sign of life, proof that the ground was healing. With the armor in place and the plow retired, the stage was set for something bigger. The soil's living network needed not just protection, but new partners, plants with different shapes, roots, and exudates to feed the underground community. The next step would push the boundaries of what a field could be. Paul Brown stands in early spring, clipboard in hand, reading off a seed list that sounds more like a chef's fantasy than a farmer's plan. Radish, peas, oats, clover, sunflowers, turnips, vetch, millet, flax, sorghum, buckwheat, lentils, hairy vetch, rye, phacelia. 15 species, each chosen for what it brings above and below ground. He is not chasing a single harvest. He is building a living buffet, feeding cattle, yes, but also billions of microbes and endless fungal threads weaving through the soil. Bare fields are a thing of the past here. As soon as one crop comes off, Paul's already prepping the next mix. Cool season covers such as oats, peas, and clover go in while the ground still holds winter's chill, their roots digging deep, shading out weeds, and waking the soil. By midsummer, warm season plants like millet, buckwheat, and sunflowers take over, their broad leaves soaking up sunlight, their stalks shooting skyward. Each species brings a specialty. Radish drills through hardpan, vetch fixes nitrogen, sunflowers mine zinc and phosphorus, and clover knits the soil with a web of fine roots. Underground, every root leaks a blend of sugars, amino acids, and enzymes, exudates that serve as invitations for bacteria and fungi. The more plant species, the richer the menu for soil life. Mycorrhizal fungi, hungry for carbon, wrap around roots, trading water and minerals for a steady drip of plant-made sugar. Instead of one crop feeding a narrow slice of biology, the field becomes a marketplace, buzzing with exchanges and alliances. New roots push down, old ones decay, and the pulse of living carbon never stops. Paul's system keeps living roots in the soil nearly every day of the year. Even after frost, winter rye and hairy vetch keep working, holding the soil open, preventing erosion, and feeding the underground network through the cold. Year-round photosynthesis turns every patch into a solar panel, pumping energy into the system when most fields would be bare. The payoff is steady organic matter, better crumb structure, and a soil that acts more like a sponge, soaking up spring rains instead of letting them run off. Timing is everything. Paul walks his fields, checks soil temperature, watches the forecast, and tweaks the mix for each season. Some years, radish explodes, breaking up old compaction. Other years, sunflowers dominate, pulling nutrients from deep below. The goal never changes: keep the soil fed, the biology awake, and the ground covered. This living root strategy does more than boost the underground economy. It sets the stage for the next act, when animals join the rotation, not as an afterthought, but as partners in a system as old as the prairie. 100 cattle press shoulder to shoulder inside a rectangle of electric poly wire, their hooves churning the cover crop jungle into a mosaic of trampled stems, broken stalks, and fresh manure. The air is thick with the sound of tearing grass and the low rumble of animals shifting as they graze. For the Brown family, this isn't just feeding livestock, it is the engine that powers the ranch's recovery. Every morning, Paul and his crew walk the fence line, rolling up reels and driving posts into new ground. The herd moves as one, packed tight for a single day on each fresh paddock, never returning to the same spot for nearly a year. This method, known as mob grazing, mimics the ancient rhythm of bison herds that once roamed the Great Plains. Instead of scattering cattle across broad pastures for weeks, the Browns concentrate them into small cells, sometimes less than an acre, where hundreds of animals graze for just 24 hours. The stocking density can reach 200,000 pounds of beef per acre, a number that would have seemed reckless to earlier generations. Yet the results speak for themselves. The trampling action presses uneaten stems and leaves into the soil surface, creating a mulch layer that shields the ground from sun and wind. Hooves break up the crust, opening space for water and seeds. Manure and urine, spread evenly across the paddock, return nutrients to the land in a form that soil microbes can use. The effect is more than cosmetic. Trampled residue feeds the underground network of fungi and bacteria, fueling a pulse of biological activity that turns waste into fertility. The next rain doesn't run off but soaks in, drawn down by the sponge-like structure built with each pass of the herd. Where the cattle have been, the soil stays moist longer, and new shoots emerge stronger and thicker. After the herd moves on, the paddock rests for 350 days or more, giving plants time to regrow, roots to deepen, and the fungal web to knit itself tighter. Over time, the cycle builds organic matter, boosts water-holding capacity, and creates a self-reinforcing loop of resilience. Temporary fencing is the backbone of this system. The crew can set up a new paddock in under 30 minutes, using lightweight posts and reels of wire. Each move is a chance to observe the density of the manure pats, the height of the grazed stems, the vigor of regrowth. Mistakes show up quickly. Graze too long and the plants struggle to recover. Move too soon and the soil biology misses its meal. The learning curve is steep, but the feedback is immediate and written in the land itself. Mob grazing closes the biological loop that began with residue armor and diverse roots. Animals become partners, not just products. Their movement, their waste, their appetite, all are harnessed to build soil, cycle nutrients, and keep the underground network thriving. The Browns no longer buy synthetic fertilizer. The herd does the work, day after day, cell by cell. It is a gritty, hands-on process, but the payoff is visible in every step. Richer soil, healthier forage, and a landscape that grows stronger with each rotation. A 5-gallon bucket, a stopwatch, and a steel ring pressed into the earth. These are the tools that reveal what decades of charts and yield maps cannot. A soil scientist kneels at the edge of a paddock, pours exactly 1 inch of water into the ring, and clicks the stopwatch. 9 seconds later, the surface is dry. The water has vanished, not by running off, but by sinking straight down, pulled into the ground by countless pores, root channels, and the invisible scaffolding built by fungi and microbes. The crowd of farmers standing nearby exchange glances. Some remember when water would pool for hours after a storm, refusing to budge, leaving fields slick and unworkable. On this ground, it is gone in less time than it takes to tie a boot. 2 decades ago, the same test would have played out differently. A single inch of rain could linger on the surface for 2 hours, unable to penetrate the tight, crusted dirt. The difference is not just speed, it is survival. Every second matters when a thunderhead breaks open over the prairie. If the soil cannot drink fast enough, the water rushes away, carrying topsoil with it, leaving behind only memories of what could have grown. The secret lies in a number that once haunted Gabe Brown: soil organic matter. For every 1% increase, an acre gains the power to hold an extra 20,000 gallons of water. On this ranch, organic matter has climbed from 1.7% to over 11%. That is nearly 200,000 gallons of extra storage in every acre, a hidden reservoir built not by dams or ditches, but by biology. During drought, when neighboring fields wilt, brown soil holds on. Roots reach deeper, grains fill, and the harvest comes in when others fail. The numbers have been checked and rechecked, in labs and in the field. Soil samples sent to independent labs return with the same verdict. The carbon bank is full, the sponge is primed. Infiltration tests run by visiting scientists confirm what the stopwatch says. The soil is alive, structured by the work of billions of organisms, each one carving out space for water and air. This is more than chemistry, it is architecture built one season at a time. The transformation is visible in the math. 11% organic matter means the ranch can store nearly 2 million gallons more water per 10-acre field than it could at the start. When a summer storm dumps an inch of rain, none of it is lost. Instead, it is banked underground, available for the next dry spell. In a region where drought is a fact of life, this is the difference between collapse and continuity. The stopwatch demo has become a rite of passage for visitors. It is a moment that turns skepticism into curiosity and curiosity into belief. The lesson is simple. Resilience is not bought in a bag or barrel. It is grown, built by the silent work of roots and fungi, by residue left standing and cattle moving in tight formation. On Brown's Ranch, the proof is in the numbers, and the numbers are written in water, carbon, and time. 5 enterprises now run side by side across Brown's 5,000 acres, each one rooted in the same living soil. Beef cattle graze on perennial pastures, rotated daily to fresh ground. Pastured pork and free-range chickens follow, foraging through the regrowth, scattering manure, and picking off pests. Honeybees work the flowering cover crops, turning prairie clover and buckwheat into jars of amber gold. Organic cash crops, wheat, oats, and corn fill out the rotation, seeded directly into the residue left by last season's growth. Every enterprise is stacked, each one feeding off the strengths of the others, and none relying on synthetic fertilizer, fungicides, or pesticides. The input ledger tells the story. Where most farms pour money into nitrogen, herbicides, diesel, and seed treatments, Brown's input costs have dropped to near zero. By 2010, the last bag of synthetic fertilizer left the shed. The herd, the cover crops, and the underground network of fungi now handle fertility and pest control. Diesel bills shrank as tillage equipment gathered dust. Seed costs are spread across diverse mixes, with some crops self-seeding year after year. The only outside purchases now are a few bales of hay during harsh winters, fencing supplies, and the occasional machinery repair. County records show the average wheat yield in Burleigh County hovers around 45 bushels per acre. On Brown's fields, the number routinely tops 55, sometimes pushing to 60, depending on the year. The same pattern holds for corn and oats. Yields consistently run 20 to 25% higher than the county average, even in dry years when neighbors' fields struggle. The difference isn't a fluke. It's the payoff from years of building organic matter, restoring the fungal network, and letting biology drive production. Profit margins, once razor-thin, now stack up across every acre. Without fertilizer or chemical bills, every bushel, every pound of beef, every dozen eggs, and every jar of honey flows straight to the bottom line. Diversification spreads risk. When grain prices fall, beef or pork picks up the slack. If drought hits the cash crops, the perennial pastures keep producing, drawing on the hidden water stored in the carbon-rich soil. The farm no longer rides the roller coaster of commodity prices and input costs. The numbers invite a new way of measuring success. Instead of yield per acre, Brown tracks profit per acre, nutrient density, and the stability of the whole system. The ranch's books show a business that runs on sunlight, rainfall, and biology, not on debt and chemical contracts. Every enterprise is a piece of the puzzle, each one making the land and the balance sheet stronger. For farmers used to the treadmill of inputs and outputs, the contrast is stark. Brown's operation proves that ecological health and financial health can grow together. The soil's living network, once invisible and now essential, powers an economy where resilience and abundance replace scarcity and stress. The lesson is clear. When the land is alive, the farm becomes an empire, and profit is measured not just in dollars, but in the health of every acre. A patch of bare ground behind the house can become the start of something much bigger. The first step is armor, protecting the soil the way prairie grass once did. Instead of tilling or leaving the earth exposed, lay down a thick blanket. Start with cardboard, overlapping sheets so no weeds poke through. Cover it with 4 to 6 inches of wood chips, straw, or last season's leaves. This lasagna bed smothers grass, holds moisture, and invites earthworms to move in. Over time, the cardboard and mulch break down, feeding the soil from the top down. No digging, no chemicals, just patience and a steady supply of organic matter. Next comes the question of how to loosen tight ground without a rototiller. The answer is the broad fork, a simple tool that is part pitchfork, part lever. Sink its tines 8 to 10 inches deep, rock it back, and let the soil lift and crack open. This is not about turning dirt over, but about opening space for air, water, and roots. Earthworms and microbes follow, tunneling through the loosened ground. One pass with the broad fork each spring is enough. The soil stays layered, the fungal threads remain unbroken, and the ground breathes again. With armor in place and the soil opened up, it is time to plant for diversity. Picture a patchwork, not a monoculture. Mix seeds, lettuce, radish, peas, sunflowers, beans, calendula by the handful and scatter them across the bed. This chaos garden mimics the wild prairie, where dozens of species grow side by side. Each plant brings a different root and a different exudate, feeding a wider community below. The roots weave together, holding soil in place and creating a living web that supports everything from microbes to pollinators. Spacing is simple. Let plants compete and cooperate, thinning only where they crowd too tightly. The result is a living mat, green from snowmelt to frost, with something always blooming or ripening. These 3 steps, armor, gentle loosening, and riotous diversity, turn any backyard into a working system. The ground stays covered, the soil never sleeps, and the underground network begins to rebuild itself. Soon, the question is not how to fight weeds or drought, but how much life the soil can hold. Roots keep working no matter the season. In a backyard that runs on living cycles, the aim is to have something growing every day of the year. Even in winter, beneath mulch and frost, roots push down, feeding the soil's unseen life. This is the quiet engine that drives abundance, and it starts with a simple succession calendar. Cool season greens go in as soon as the ground thaws. Beans and squash follow when the air warms. As summer wanes, a late sowing of radish or winter rye slips in before cold returns, each planting hands off to the next, weaving a web of roots that never lets the soil rest. Continuity, not complexity, is the secret. One crop's finish is another's beginning. Animals join this loop as micro-livestock. A 4x4 chicken tractor, just big enough for 6 hens, moves across the yard in daily steps. Every morning, it shifts forward 4 feet onto new grass or cover crop. The hens scratch, peck, and fertilize, leaving behind clipped greens and manure. By the next day, they are on fresh ground, and the patch behind them rests and regrows. Over a season, chickens mow, eat pests, and return nutrients, all while laying eggs with golden yolks. The soil underneath grows softer, richer, and more alive. In a year, every patch of ground has hosted roots and feet, each square given weeks to recover between visits. Compost tea completes the cycle. Fill a 5-gallon bucket with water, add finished compost, and bubble it with an aquarium stone. Stir in 1 tablespoon of unsulfured molasses per 5 gallons to feed the microbes. After 24 hours, the brew teems with life. Dilute it, 1 part tea to 10 parts water, and sprinkle it over beds or spray it on leaves. This living tea does not replace soil, it wakes it up, helping plants resist disease and stress. Unlike synthetic fertilizers, which burn fast and fade, compost tea builds resilience from the roots up. Every loop, 365 days of roots, a moving chicken tractor, a bucket of bubbling tea, feeds the next. Nothing wasted. Grass clippings, kitchen scraps, fallen leaves, even last year's failures become fuel. The goal is not perfection, but momentum. Over time, the backyard becomes a living engine of abundance, powered by biology, not by the bag or bottle. It all starts here, 1 root, 1 chicken, 1 bucket at a time. Today, chemical-based yields still dominate headlines, but nutrient density and soil life quietly decide our real health and resilience. As millions face degraded farmland and rising chronic disease, Brown's living soil isn't just a legacy, it is a blueprint, The empire wasn't built by force, but by partnership with the unseen network beneath our feet. The future of food depends on which world we choose to feed. What kind of soil will you build next?